Welcome, I'm Seema from Edufinite. In this video, I will be comparing the verbals, how and where gerunds are used, how and where infinitives are used. I've divided the whole comparison between the gerunds and the infinitives into two parts so that you can understand them better. This video is the second part and I will be discussing here the rules involved in using the gerunds and the infinitives as a subject of the verb, which one to use with prepositions or with adjectives or with the verbs of perceptions, etc. I will help you to clear your concepts on the topic. Hope it's beneficial for you. If you have any queries, you can write to me in the comment section. In case you need to refer, the link to my other videos on the verbals are provided in the description box. Now let us delve into the topic. Well, gerunds and infinitives. Now, gerunds and infinitives are verbals, that means verb forms, that means they look like verbs, but their forms are very different. As we see here, like gerunds, how do they look like? They look like jumping, breaking, saving, learning, seeing, doing. That means it's the base verb plus ing. So that's the form of the gerunds. Now, the next is the infinitives. Well, how do the infinitives look like? Well, their form is to jump, to break, to save, to learn, to see, to do. That means to plus the base verb. So form-wise, they are very different and very identifiable. Like you can just see and tell which is the gerund and which is the infinitive. But the main confusion lies in the fact that they both can function like a noun. And what does that mean? Well, that means that they will occupy the same position in a sentence that a noun would normally occupy. That is either as a subject or as a direct object or as a subjective complement or as an object of preposition in a sentence. Well, and these verb forms do not function like verbs. So that's very important. They do not function like verbs. So now we have to know how and where do we use them? That is, how do they function? What's the rule behind the guidelines that we should follow? How and where to use them? Well, since this is a two-part video, this is the second part. Here, I'll be discussing more about the subject form. That means when the gerunds or the infinitives are present in the sentence as the subject. Since they behave like noun, so just like a noun in a sentence, they are present as subjects. So where and how do we use them as subjects? The other one is, which one do we use after preposition, after adjectives, whether we use gerund or we use the infinitives, and after the verbs of perception, which one do we prefer to use? So these are the few questions that we'll now delve into. So the rules of using gerunds and infinitives. The first one is, gerunds are usually opted for when used before the main verb in a sentence, that is as a subject. So in a sentence, the main verb, if we place something before that, that means it has to be as the subject of that particular verb, then that we usually opt for gerunds and not infinitives. For example, we usually say smoking is injurious to health, where smoking is the gerund. We hardly say to smoke is injurious to health, where to smoke is the infinitive. The next one, we usually say swimming is a lot of fun, where swimming is a gerund. Over here we can see smoking, swimming, these are all subjects. Subjects of the verb is. But we usually say that swimming is a lot of fun, but we hardly say to swim is a lot of fun. like the general people, when they are talking, we usually go for these gerund forms of the verb rather than the infinitive forms when we use them as subjects. Well, let's look into some other examples. We usually say teaching is a noble profession, where teaching is the gerund, of course, and we hardly say to teach is a noble profession, where to teach is the infinitive. Well, you have to note here one thing. When we describe something that is general or a future course of action and we do it in a formal way, then we usually stick to the infinitives. We use infinitives as a subject in that particular sentence. Like, to help is important. So to help is the infinitive form. We don't say helping is important that time when we want to be formal and when we, try to say this as a general term, like helping, when we help others, that is very important. This attitude is very important. So we sometimes say to help is important, or we may even say to cheat is a crime. So these are some of the positions where we use infinitives as the subject. Well, the next one. Both gerunds and bare infinitives are used after verbs of perception or sense in a sentence. So words of perception or sense, that is feel, hear, see, watch, smell. So after these words or these verbs of perceptions, we usually use the gerunds or the bare infinitives. Now, what is a bare infinitive? Well, a bare infinitive is an infinitive without its to. That means we just have the main verb. We drop down the to and we just use the main verb. So these are known as bare infinitives. Well, if you'd like to know more about bare infinitives, you can look into my videos on the gerunds and infinitives. So there you'll get it. Let's look into some of the examples to understand them a little better. So we can say, we can feel our heart pumping continuously. Or we can even say, we can feel our heart pump continuously. So what have we done? We have used pump. We have dropped the to. We did not say we can feel our heart to pump continuously. That's not applicable. So this, when we are dropping to and using the base verb only, that is pump over here. So both are correct form of usage. Now, when we say my heart is pumping continuously, that's a continuous action. Even when we say we can feel our heart pump continuously, that is also a continuous action. That means they both mean the same. Now the next one, I watched them playing basketball. So here, after watch, we are using the gerund form. Then the next sentence, I watched them play basketball. So again, from to play, we have dropped the to and we've just used play, which is the bare infinitive. So this form is also correct. So both are correct. And the first one is also, I watched them play basketball. That means it's a continuous thing. Even the second one means the same. That means I watched them play basketball. So they both mean the same. Well, the next one. We could smell the cake baking in the kitchen. That's the gerund. And also, we could smell the cake bake in the kitchen. That's the bare infinitive. We have dropped the to. To bake, from to bake, we have dropped the to and just taken this base verb, that is bake. So both mean the same. They don't have any difference in meaning. But let's look into the next sentence. We heard the doorbell ringing. So over here, heard the doorbell ringing, which is a gerund form. That means heard the doorbell ringing. That means it's ringing continuously. But when we say we heard the doorbell ring, that means we have just heard it. When it had rung, we just heard it. So that's not a continuous process. That's not something continuous. It's one-time action. We've just heard the doorbell ring. So that's the difference over here. Next, Rima saw her brother jumping on the sofa. So here again, this is a continuous action. She saw her brother jumping on the sofa. He was jumping continuously on the sofa. The next sentence, Rima saw her brother jump on the sofa. So that is again over here, when we say Rina saw her brother jump on the sofa, that it refers to one-time actions. So she had seen him jump. So now she is referring to that she had seen him jump on the sofa. You have to note here one point. Usually it is safer to use gerund version as the bare infinitive form might seem unconventional at times. So usually when we use verbs of perception, we use the gerund form of the verb because sometimes it may feel unconventional when we use only the bare infinitives. Well, the next point is bare infinitives are always used after modal verbs. So after modal verbs, we never use the gerund. It's only the bare infinitives and not also the infinitives. You have to drop the two and use only the bare infinitives after the modal verbs. So modal verbs can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will or would. So these are the modal verbs, as you know. So for example, you can go home now. So we cannot say you can going home now or you can to go home now. So it's only this form, the bare infinitive form, which we can use after the modal verb. Well, the next thing is bare infinitives are always used after the expressions help, let, make, notice. For example, let her come in. We never say let her coming in, or we also do not say let her to come in. It's only let her come in. So the bare infinitive is used after these expressions. Well, next rule is only gerunds are used after prepositions in a sentence that is as an object of preposition. So because we already know, if you look into my verbals about the gerunds, there I have explained that gerunds are used as objects of preposition. Only gerund can be used as object of preposition. Their infinitive has no role to play. So let's look into some of the sentences. We drank coffee before departing. So before is the preposition. So we are using the gerund form departing. We cannot say we drank coffee before to depart. That's wrong English. Well, the next sentence. Kate was fined for driving at high speed. So again, the gerund form. For is the preposition, so after it we have used the gerund form driving. But if we say Kate was fined for to drive at high speed, that's absolutely wrong. So we cannot use the infinitive at all after the preposition. Next, the old man made money by selling flowers. Again, by is the preposition, so after that we've used the gerund form selling flowers. We can never say the old man made money by to sell flowers. So that's wrong English. You have to note another point over here. We should not confuse preposition to with an infinitive form or with the auxiliary form. For example, have to, used to, going to. So sometimes we get confused with the preposition to or the infinitive form, because in infinitive form you have the to. Again, in the auxiliary form, again we use have to, where we have the auxiliary verb plus to. So have to, used to, going to, this is the auxiliary form. So let's look into some of the sentences to understand it better. Raj went back to writing his paper. So here to writing, Raj went back, like he had come out or something for some reason. Now he's again gone back, and why? He has to write his paper. So to writing over here, to is the preposition and writing is the gerund. The next sentence, we used to live in Shillong. So over here, used to live. So used to is the auxiliary and live is the main verb. So that's how it's different from preposition and gerunds. Here we will not be saying we used to living in Shillong. Next, they wanted to go home. So here again, it's verb plus the infinitive. They wanted, what did they want? To go home. So to go is the infinitive. So these are the three forms which we should remember and not get confused when we use the preposition to. So keep that in mind. Well, the next set of rule is only infinitives are used after adjectives in a sentence. So let's look into some of the examples to understand it better. It is hard to find a restaurant open this late. So it is hard, the word hard is the adjective. After that, we've used the infinitive form to find. We cannot say it is hard finding a restaurant open this late. So that's wrong English. And the next sentence, I find it difficult. Difficult is the adjective. Then we have the infinitive to describe my feeling right now. So I find it difficult to describe my feeling right now. So this is the right form, but we cannot say by using a gerund after the adjective because that's wrong English. For example, I find it difficult describing my feeling right now. So that's not the right usage. Now, the next set of rule is only infinitives are used to show purpose. Suppose you have to show some reason. In that case, we only use the infinitives and not the gerund form. For example, Raj left for London to study engineering. So he left for London. Why? This is the reason. To study engineering. Now we cannot say Raj left for London studying engineering. That's wrong English. The next sentence. I came to your place. Why? To complete the project. So here again we have used the infinitive form, to complete. We can never say I came to your place completing the project. So that's again wrong English. Well, the next set of rules. Only infinitives are used after the main verb followed by an indirect object in a sentence. So in my part 1 of this video, I have described or I have explained how infinitives and gerunds are used as objects of verb. Here we have to focus that when the main verb has an indirect object after it as a pronoun, and then after that we have to use either infinitive or gerund. It can never be a gerund. It always has to be the infinitive, because in the object, when we are using the gerund or the infinitive as the object of the verb, it's fine. We can use either of it according to the main verb. But when the main verb has an indirect object beside it, we have to use only the infinitive. So let's look into some of the examples to understand it. Her mother forbade her to go there. So we see her mother, after that forbade is the main verb. Then we have the indirect object. What is that? Her. Pronoun her. So that's the indirect object. Whenever we have an indirect object of this sort, that is a pronoun, in that case, we always have to use the infinitive form of the verbal. So we cannot say her mother forbade her going there. That's wrong. Let's look into some more sentences. We did not expect them to win an award. So again, expect, after that we have the pronoun them. That's the indirect object. So after the indirect object, we have to use the infinitive. So it's to win. And we cannot say we did not expect them winning an award. That's wrong. I want you to take part in the event. So want, after want, that's the main verb. We have the you as the indirect object. That's the pronoun, which is acting as the indirect object. And then we have to use the infinitive. I want you, what I want you to take part in the event. So it's the infinitive form of the verbal that we are using. We cannot say, I want you taking part in the event. That is absolutely wrong. So that's all for today. Thank you for being there with me. If you like the content, give a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Do subscribe to my channel and press the notification bell icon for future updates. Bye. Take care. See you in the next one.